Okay, so I mentioned in the first video the theological notion of the sign. This is the dualist notion of the sign, the idea of some kind of mystical meaning stuff, an immaterial meaning stuff that rides as a passenger on either, pure sensation or substrate physicality, depending on your version of indirect realism. So I think this still dominates the idea that meaning is immaterial. Now, what is materiality? I'm following my interpretation of Plato's esoteric doctrine, and I'm saying that there is no pure meaning or pure immateriality, but there's also no pure materiality. So the sign, the demystified sign, is something like Saussure's thought sound. The way we can approach meaning, this is connected to Wilfrid Sellers' approach. He talked about the inferential roles, but I would like to generalize that and talk about blurry equivalence classes. So there are different sound acts or speech acts that are roughly equivalent, and they're interchangeable in this or that practical situation. So it's an equivalence class. Translation is paraphrase, is to pair a phrase, to find a roughly equivalent speech act. Now, detecting this equivalence, this would be a matter of phronesis or skill or sensitivity. It would not be radically different from driving or playing the guitar. This thought sound, it's like a stop sign, it's like a storm cloud, it's like a cat's meow, but it's admittedly more complex. Now, these blurry equivalence classes, what is the meaning of a blurry equivalence class? This is a mathematical metaphor. Am I saying that mathematics gives us pure meaning? No, equivalence class is itself an equivalence class. The word meaning, it is also an equivalence class. So if I talk about interchangeability of pragmatic speech acts, that is roughly equivalent to my use of the metaphor equivalence class. So to get this, to understand this, I think it's extremely helpful to study early Heidegger. His lectures starting around 1919, he really focuses on the significance of the environmental or the life world. He uses different terms, but he keeps trying to point at the original reality that we live in, the pre-theoretical reality. Of course, being in time is largely about this ready-to-hand entities, the way that tools exist for us. And you might say that these speech acts are not so far from ready-to-hand tools. We can, of course, thematize them. We can switch into a theoretical mode. So historicity should be mentioned here. It's a continuum. Some things are more signish than others. So a cat's meow is significant. It means something to you in the life world, but Saussure stressed the arbitrariness of signs, the conventionality of signs. Maybe they're not perfectly arbitrary, but basically the sounds and marks that we happen to use, they could have been otherwise. The sound mom does not have to be associated with what we call the concept of mother. So to come up into a language like English is to learn a responsiveness to particular sounds and noises, to adopt certain norms imperfectly. We all speak idiolects, but we develop our skill in trading these marks and noises with others. Let me emphasize that using this phrase, marks and noises, which I got from Richard Rorty, this is not an attempt to say that there is no such thing as a meaning. It's not that we're just talking gibberish. The marks and noises are significant in a life world sense, but I don't think we should think of them theologically as vehicles or carriers of some mystical meaning stuff. And this meaning stuff, the mystical version of it, this fits in with the concept of the subject as a container, right? And people tend to reify consciousness, and they think of it as some kind of stuff that's in the cranium. In consciousness, it contains or it constitutes things like pure meaning and qualia. So experience is, consciousness is a kind of goo, a cranial goo, a mystical cranial goo, and the mysticism that goes with it, in the same way that pepper goes with salt, is this strange projection of a substrate, of a magical, faraway substrate that functions as truth maker. And this substrate would be something like the world from God's point of view, but scientific thinkers, they wouldn't phrase it this way, but it's some version of the divine truth maker, but de-Christianized. Now, I will say that I think picture theory is right enough. We can pre-present situations, we can confirm predictions, but confirmation is personal. Belief is owned or situated. So objective truth is a meaningless, if seductive, phrase. The demystified understanding of objectivity is as the absence of disqualifying bias.